Is it on? You're good. Good morning, everybody. As the newly re-elected Chair of the Australian Sangha Association, I acknowledge, celebrate and pay my respects to the Ngunnawal people of the Canberra region and recognise any other people or families with connection to the lands of the ACT and region, to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations Australians on whose traditional lands we meet and work, and whose cultures are among the oldest continuing cultures in human history. I would like to welcome everyone here this morning. We had a big day yesterday, and so I'm glad to see that we have even more people here this morning. I welcome all our senior monastics, or all monastics I should say, and all lay members as well. I would especially like to thank the Venerable Thich Quang, Most Venerable. Thank you very much for having provided this resource for our AGM and conference. I would also like to thank and acknowledge all of the Most Venerable's community volunteers who have come and assisted with this conference. They have done a lot of work in preparation to make all of this happen for us, and for that I'm most grateful. I look forward to seeing everybody at the Pindabata. And did I welcome all our most esteemed guests? I'm very sorry. I can say I'm on some new medication and I'm feeling a little bit average at the moment, so my apologies that I haven't welcomed you formally, but I'm very glad to see you here, and that having you here amongst us all, we can build connections that see the Buddhist community well represented in Canberra and contributing toward the multiculturalism that we would so like to be a part of. So with that, I will leave Venerable Mettaji. I haven't forgotten anyone else, have I? No? And he will introduce everybody else. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks everybody for coming so bright and early and coming and celebrating the most auspicious day in the Buddhist calendar, Vesak. What we're going to do is three traditions are going to give their chanting and their Vesak message first. In your program, you'll see the chanting if you'd like to follow it. Each chant goes for about 3 or 4 minutes, and we've translated it into English as best as we can, so you can follow along with us. And then our distinguished guests, we would just like you to make some remarks about Vesak to the podium and celebrate with us on what is a joyful, peaceful and celebratory day. So Venerable Thich Quang Ba, would you start please with the Heart Sutra in Vietnamese?
Dear brothers and sisters in the Mahasangha present here today, and all our invited guests, this special guests from local and federal representatives, and also not a lot, but for this early hour, few dozen of lay people presented here is a bit unusual to us. Normally we celebrate this day, the birthday of the Buddha, started from 10 o'clock, but never mind. And now my duty to lead the chanting on behalf of what's so-called the Mahayana tradition by Heart Sutra in Vietnamese language. The other venerable senior leader of the Rakayana and Theravada will lead other chanting later on, okay? Okay, just follow me if you could. Mời chư tăng trên đây cùng tụng bát nhã với nhau ạ. Yeah. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Mai ha bát nhã ba la mật đa tâm kinh quán tự tại Bồ Tát hành thâm bát nhã ba la mật đa hộ ứng giai không độ nhất thiết khổ ách xa lợi tử sắc bất dị không không bất dị sắc sắc tức thì không thọ tưởng hành thức hiền phục như thị xa lợi tử thị chư pháp không tướng bất sanh bất diệt bất câu không trùng vô sáng vô thọ tướng hành thức vô nhãn nhĩ tỷ thiệt thân y vô sắc thanh hương vị xúc pháp đại trí vô ý thức giới vô vô minh diệt vô vô minh tận đại trí vô lão tử tận vô vô khó tâm nhiên đạo vô trí diệt vô đắc nhị vô sở đắc cố vô đề tạng đọa y bát nhã ba la mật đa cô vô ngoại ngài cố vô hữu không vô viễn ly liên đạo mộng tương cứu canh niết bàn tam thế chư Phật bà la mộng đa cô đắc nậu đa la tam miệu tam bồ đề cố trì bát nhã ba la mật đa thị đại minh chú thị vô thượng chú thần chú năng trời nhân thiên khổ chân thực bất hư cố thiết mang nhã ba la mật đa chú tức thiết chú viết ba la yến đế ba la tăng yến đế vô đề tăng bài hai yến đế ba la yến đế bồ đề tăng bài hai yến đế ba la tăng bồ đề tăng ba. Kính lễ Đức Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật, hôm nay chúng con cộng đồng tăng lữ và tại gia chào đón ngày đản sinh thành đạo và niết bàn của Ngài, ngưỡng mong Đức Phật hộ trì chúng con tinh tấn tu hành hoằng dương chánh pháp, cứu độ nhân sinh thoát vô lượng khổ. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nguyện đem công đức này hướng về khắp tất cả đệ tử và chúng sinh đều trọn thành Phật đạo. Thank you. Good morning again, my brothers and my sisters in the Mahasangha, and also invited guests and lay fellows. Today we celebrate the special day of Nativity of Enlightenment at the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha, according to a commonly accepted tradition. As different area of Asia has different days to celebrate that day anyway. The Buddhist community in Australia has increased dramatically since the last 45 years after the Vietnam War. Census 2021-2026 says we got about 650,000, But in reality, we believe that should be a bit more than that, maybe 800,000. Around 15,000 here in the ACT. And we are lucky to be the very first Buddhist center in the ACT, started in early '84. And I'm sorry that the construction is still not completed yet. I'm very bad monk, not very good in construction anyway. Doing many other things, but not very good in construction. Thank you very much for coming, Venerable Sir, because this is the third time we host AGM for Australian Sangha Association, where I have joined with Ajahn Brahm and a few other senior monks around the country, forming up this association since 2005. Is that correct, Venerable? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity for welcoming the Sangha coming to this place and giving us a blessing of your presence and giving us a lot of happiness, because we rarely welcome this many of Sangha coming in one place. And also, thank you for the all the MPs who had come here for giving this place for your very important role and remark and so on. We like to, of course, take opportunity to mention that the Buddhist is not following the Buddha idea, not the hierarchical and systematic tradition. We have to practice, we have to get enlightenment, we have to give our services to the humanity according to our effort personally and small group or in small institutional side, not very big system altogether as in other religious organizations. That's why we are free to select among many methods of Buddha teaching to pursue for getting liberated from suffering ourselves and getting some enlightenment accordingly. And this is the beautiful of Buddhism. And that the idea of Buddhist propagating mission format. And here in Australia, as a refugee monk arriving here 40 odd years ago, we got full freedom, unlike some part of Asia still. We got the duty to practice, to help our fellow members and others who like to learn Buddhism and practice Buddhism, not in very quiet mood, but not necessarily have a big campaign, a big missionary as in other cases. And following the years, we got some achievement, and thanks for government policy accordingly from the last 40 odd years since I got to be here, and we can do something, particularly the difficulty of share problem, having not enough local candidates for training to become monks and nuns. We always have to rely on a very sensible immigration policy to get inviting in our fellow Sangha coming from overseas to help us for the growth of this Buddhist of Australia community, growing relatively quick, but we don't have enough, the educated and leading monks and nuns to help the wider lay community to grow themselves. This is another problem that we need to have some of your voices in the federal parliament house to help us along, make sure that we can get the chance to get reasonably, of course, but not, I don't want to mention the word discriminatory. Let's make sure that with what we need and we can get that, then we are responsible to help our new coming Sangha to play their role here and according to the government immigration policy. Then maybe that much I could say for now because I don't have much time. Thank you very much for listening, and then we will welcome you to here in another occasion in our own Vesak on the Sunday, the 4th of June. I may like to see people to come again. Thank you, Tenya and other local members. Thank you very much. And I thank you for Sangha all coming here. If anything shortest, just excuse us. Thank you.
Tashi Dilek, good morning, welcome. It's so wonderful that we are joined here together as Buddhist Sangha from all different traditions of all different, well, many different nationalities, not all of them in Australia. And thank you so much to our guests for coming along and joining us for this Vesak celebration. So the chant I'll be offering in Tibetan is a praise to Sakyamuni Buddha, and you do have in your programs the English version as well. Lama Tompa Tom Dende Deshin Shekpa Drachompa Yandapa Sope Sangye Ripada Shabshudan Pa Dewa Shekpa Jitin Genpa Gebudu E Kalur Gyuala Namepa Lada Menam Ke Tumba Sangye Jemdende Pagyawa Shakya Tupala Chakselo Chodu Kyapsu Chiyo Lama Tompa Chomdende Deshin Shekpa Drachompa Yandapa Sope Sangye Ripada Shabshudan Pa Dewa Shekpa Jiten Genpa Gebudu E Kalur Gyuala Namepa Lada Menam Ke Tampa Sangye Chamdende Pagyawa Shakya Tupala Chakselo Chodu Kyapsu Chiyo Lama Tompa Chamdende Deshin Shekpa Drachompa Yangdapa Sope Sangye Ripada Shabshudan Pa Dewa Shekpa Jikten Genpa Gebudua Kulo Gyua Nalambe Pa Lada Menam Ke Tumpa Sangye Chamdende Pagyawa Shakya Tupala Chakselo Chodu Kyapsu Chiyo Gangse Gangni Suwo Kutamchi Sachendi Lagampano Bone Nani Jikten Tinya Chokyi Su Ditseki Pakula Chakselo Namda Kunang Tuntun Suzangwa Yeshi Gatso Segilun Podra Drapa Jikten Sunala Mewa Kompo Chunye Kula Chakselo Sencho Den Padri Medra Wejel Setro Doa Kula Chakselo Tudrel Kusdrasi Masumachi Nyame Kenchen Kepa Chakselo Kompo Tuje Che Denpa Tamche Kenpe to Papo Sonam Yoten Gatshoshi Tishing Shekla Chakselo Dape to Chakdra Wagyu Gawaine Ning Zong Le Droshi Chiktu to Dam Chogyo Pa Chikyu Chila Chakselo Drone Drowe Lam Yantun Tala Pa Dara Ratune Shingi Dampa Yon Tenden Gindun La Yang Chakselo Sangye Chu La Chakselo Kyopa Chu La Chakselo Gendun Che La Chakselo Somla Ta Tugu Chakselo Chaja Opa Tamche La Shimdu Kumgi Drangye Ki Lutu Pa Yi Nam Kuntu Choktu De Pe Chakselo Tikpad Bige Chi Ma Chi Sha Shing Ge Wa Pun Sung So Ba Be Peche Rangi Semyi Yong Suru Wa Te Sangye Ten Pa Ten Pa Lo Pa She Kamara Ri Ma Me Dang Kyo Ma Shu Pa Chu Po Dang Milam Lo Dan Jin Tabu De Che Che Nam Di Tatu So Nam Di Tam She Shik Pa Yi Go Pang Tom Ne Kun Gi Ja Tu Te Gadang Ne Dang Chi We La Tu Pe Si Pe So Le Dro Wa Shu. Gewadi Nututa Glama Sangi Jubguni Joa Chikya Malupa De Sala Gopa Sho Janchub Sencho Grimposhi Make Panam Gekuchi Gewanyampa Me Payang Gong Ni Gong Du Pewa Shu. So from the Tibetan tradition, we celebrate, along with our Vietnamese brothers and sisters and many others, this whole month of Vesak, culminating on the Sunday, the 4th of June. And we call Sakadawa, and that is a celebration of the birth, passing into parinirvana, and enlightenment of Sakyamuni Buddha. We say passing into parinirvana because it's the Buddha leaving behind the mortal body and continuing on, as the Buddha said in passing, I will always return as your teacher. In my organisation, the Foundation for Preservation of Mahayana Tradition, sadly we're also mourning at this time the passing of our own spiritual director, Lama Thubten Zopa, who established, along with Lama Yeshe, the first of our tradition Tibetan Buddhist centre in Queensland, in Australia, Chenrezig Institute, and the Chenrezig nuns community that has been in existence for some time. We have centres all throughout Australia and the world. And what I admire, about the vision of our lamas, it's the foundation for the preservation of the Mahayana tradition. Of course, I don't want to be non-inclusive, but it was vaster than just, the Tibetan tradition, and a great vast vision. And I think that's what Buddhism offers Australia, that we have vast visions that goes on for eons. And it very much resonates with environmental responsibility, climate responsibility for all beings on this planet, but let's say Australia, which includes non-human as well as human beings. And so we have a deep sense, all of us, of a sense of responsibility to care for people and to care for this country. And as Vice Chair of the Australian Sangha Association, and I'm very grateful, Venerable Thich, most venerable, that this is the third occasion that I've been able to participate here with the Australian Sangha Association's AGM and conference and so forth. And what I've found each time over the years is that, we have grown ourselves in our vision for what we are capable of in Australia, and that will continue to grow. And so we're very, very honoured as well to be in partnership with the Federation for Australian Buddhist Council. Thank you, Gawaine, who's here, Gawaine Powell, who's here as the president there. And so we collaborate together, but also with our multicultural, multi-faith brothers and sisters as spiritual leaders of whatever tradition or no formal tradition. We feel it's our responsibility coming together as people who hold spiritual values dear to help those in need. That's our job description. Wherever possible, and with the help of the community. So very much reaching out in outreach through our chaplaincy, not just in our temples but going out into community, into prisons, into education, into hospitals and education, to be able to, spread a message of ethical values that are shared amongst all of us in a shared humanity. Sometimes for us who are monastics, the robes get in the way, so thank you to all our lay people who actually probably make a deeper connection with people because, this doesn't get in the way and they don't think they have to be all holy or something. Just relax. So we do take this responsibility very seriously, and we hope that that is something that is shared, that response back towards us, that we have this reciprocal arrangement and mutual respect. We certainly, across our traditions, have received that in Australia, and I was honoured. I think last time I was in Canberra, we were at Parliament House when the Tibetan Prime Minister in exile came to Australia just for 2 days to thank the Australian Parliament for looking after the Tibetan community. So there is that sense of deep gratitude and respect, and we're fortunate to meet with politicians across the board in that brief time and have a presentation to Parliament. And that spirit of generosity, just to come to say thank you, is something that maybe is not experienced a lot, I don't know, within the Australian Parliament, just to say thank you, no strings attached. So thank you everybody for being here today, and we continue to celebrate, as well as I mentioned, the passing of our spiritual director, that we have prayers and pujas and so forth going on anyway in this month throughout India, Nepal, Tibet, and many countries throughout the world 24/7. And we believe that through our prayers and through the prayers of anyone of any faith, that it's sending out good vibrations in the world, that it resonates and transforms the environment. Thank you very much.
Very good. So again, greetings to the Mahasangha of the both genders, monks and nuns. Welcome. Welcome to our distinguished guests here today. Some of you I've known before, some for the first time, but welcome to you all. And I am from the West Australia, and the West Australia, we always say, is closest to India. In the old days, apparently, it was all part of what we called Gondwana land. And that little piece of Western Australia around Perth, it actually used to fit in to what is now India. So even the geology of Western Australia, the coastline and the hills there, is very similar, the rock formations, to what's in the east coast of India. So we reckon we have a connection which was split over millions of years, but still is there. So anyway, I'll do some chanting before I go any further to celebrate this Vesak Day. This is the English translation of the Metta Sutta, and this is a very famous chant through most of the Theravada Buddhist world. And I always remember that when in Burma, the Buddhist monks were doing a peaceful protest for food for many of the people who didn't have enough to eat, even though they were facing the bullets of the military. This was the chant which they did throughout that very, very scary time. Many of those monks died, but nevertheless, this was the chant which they did. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, none burdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, freed from drowsiness. One could sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The sadhu I said at the end is a Pali Sanskrit word. In Australian it translates as awesome. We say awesome, awesome, awesome. But anyway, it is always a joy to be able to celebrate Vesaks in different places, and that's one of the advantages of different communities celebrating Vesak on a different day, which means you can go to 3 or 4 Vesaks every year at the very minimum and enjoy each one of them. It is one of the beautiful things about Buddhism. We do learn how to work together. And we don't just say that, we try and do that as best as possible. Not just for Buddhists, but for everybody else as well. You may see the little bows which we do to the Buddha statue. And sometimes Australians don't understand, what are we bowing to? Why do we bow? And I mentioned this to a very senior Christian in Perth. He was a principal of one of the very expensive Christian schools in that city. And I went to give a talk at his school. And as we were going in to the assembly hall, this principal said, "This is a Christian school, so myself and the chaplain, we will do a little bow to the statue of Jesus, but you're a Buddhist monk, you don't need to." And I said, "I don't need to, but I want to. I demanded my right to bow." So I did a little bow to the statue of Jesus. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I can see something in that image which I can respect. And that's why I bow to it." And that's why I told him, whenever I bow to a Buddha statue, those, was it ceramic? Both ceramic images. Sometimes we have big metal images, sometimes gold images. The only reason I bow to that is what it represents to me. And the most important thing it represents, first of all, is virtue, honesty, goodness. That's so important as a meaning in our lives, all our lives. It's wonderful here that you can trust everybody here. I don't know, I left my bag out over there where we met together. I imagine it's still there. I don't have to go checking because you trust everybody in this temple. People you know for a long time. You don't have to have any worries at all. And that sort of virtue is a beautiful part of our culture, not just spiritual culture, Australian culture, where we can trust one another. We don't have to have any worries about things being stolen. You were a policeman before, Sam, and you know what it's like. You know, why do people steal from one another? If you want it, take it. You don't need to steal. In other words, that sharing, that generosity is something, wherever I see that, the honesty, what you say is what you will do. And that means that I bow to that. The second bow which I bow to is peace. The stillness, especially we could do in our meditation practices, but also just sometimes the silence which you could hear in Buddhist temples. Many people come to those temples. They're not Buddhist. They just sit there for a bit of peace and quiet. One of our local council members over in Serpentine Jaldal Shah, where my monastery is situated, he came to thank me once. He said, "I'm not a Buddhist. I'm part of the council, but every time I get stressed out, I drive to your car park, I just sit there, that's all I do. When I go back again, I would feel more peaceful." So, Sam, Alicia, I don't care if you're a Buddhist or what you are. If you get stressed out, come to the car park here and chill out. You do get the energy from that. Even, who was it, that great tennis player, the Novak Djokovic. At Wimbledon, whenever he was playing there, he'd always go and spend a couple of hours in the Thai temple before playing his matches, just to relax and be calm. That's why he became a world champion. I reckon, anyway. So anyway, the next thing, we bow to peace. And the last thing is compassion and kindness. Because every time you see a great act of kindness and compassion, that just gives you so much joy and inspiration. Little things and gifts which we do, which we don't have to. We decide, who cares? That person needs something. They need an extra glass of water, or they need just a hand up, something which assists them. And that means so much. So those are the three things which I bow to every time I bow, to virtue, peace and compassion. When I told that to that very senior Christian, he came to my monastery for a visit, and we both went into the hall. We both bowed together, the 3 times to the Buddha. Religion is not there to divide us. Spirituality is there to bring us together. And I couldn't help but tell this story. You see the Buddha, that's the Buddha's birth. He lifted up one finger, Not the middle finger, the finger of love. But it always reminded me of the little story, which you're very happy to repeat wherever you go, of the 5 fingers arguing who is the most powerful finger, the most important. This finger said, look, I am the opposable thumb. Without me, you can't hold things. When you say you approve, you put me up. You disapprove, you put me down. I'm a very powerful finger. And then this one said, no, I am the most important finger. When you say number 1, which finger do you hold up? Me. Also, I'm the finger of wisdom. I can point things out to people. So I'm the most important finger. So it said, no, I am the most important finger, said the middle finger. I am the tallest. I can see furthest. And in Buddhism, we always celebrate the middle way. I am the middle finger. I'm the most important. Then this finger said, no, it's me who's the most important. When you get engaged or married, you put the ring on me. I am the finger of love. And without love, where would this world be? And then it left this one, the little finger. And this little finger said, even though I am small and I do dirty things, nevertheless, I am the most important. Because when you pray to your guru or to your religious leader or to the Buddha, I am always closest to the Buddha. In other words, you don't need to be big or powerful to be the most important. Just the little ones who do the hard work. The people I like best in my temple are the ones who clean up afterwards. They're the closest to the Buddha. So this is just little wisdom, especially on a Vesak day, which we celebrate, to share all the wisdom and the stories and the joy and the happiness which we have in our world for everybody. And you don't need to be a Buddhist. If you are, that's wonderful. But nevertheless, however we can share our teachings with as many as we possibly can. And we do the very best we possibly can in Australia to create that equity so no one ever feels left out. I'll just finish with that last story, if we may, not going over time, about how we try and get everybody involved and to feel welcome. And it's the story of the trees in the forest. Look at any forest here in ACT, any other part of Australia, you'll never find a perfect tree. Every tree in the forest is bent, crooked, twisted, and damaged. And in fact, it is the twisted, bent, crooked trees which I like the best. They've got character. If ever I wanted my photograph taken next to a tree, I prefer the bent, crooked ones rather than the straight ones. So for that, you don't have to be perfect to be welcomed into Australia. You don't need to be perfect to be a Buddhist, a Christian, whatever spirituality you're following. As long as you are kind. So number one, everybody should feel welcome. And everybody, if you are damaged, you can become the most attractive tree in the whole forest. Little things like that of welcoming everybody, we try to put into practice. Especially on this day, on we're celebrating Vesak. A Buddha who was actually Indian, but nevertheless could welcome everybody, no matter who they are. And these are not just words. This is how we aspire to practice. I'm not perfect at it, because I too am a tree who is crooked and twisted and bent by life. But this is actually how we can understand one another. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And please have a happy Vesak.
you for those beautiful chants and your messages for Vesak. We were so delighted and happy that so many distinguished guests would come and celebrate with us. We were overjoyed when you all said yes. So we'd like you now individually to come up and give your Vesak message. First, I'd like to ask Sam Lim, MP for Tangi, to come up and say a few words. We're very proud of Sam because he's the first federal MP who took the vow on the Dhammapada as a Buddhist in federal parliament. And he did some beautiful work on multiculturalism and was the Western Australian Policeman of the Year in recent times. So Sam, you're very welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owner of the land, pay my respect to the past, present, emerging, and I'm very happy to be invited to come to this event. And I would like to first say thanks to this Australian Sangha Association. Thank you, President. Are you the President? You're a very capable President. Yeah. And I also would like to acknowledge Venerable Thich. Venerable came to my maiden speech last year. Thank you. Thank you, Venerable. And Venerable Thubten Chokyi, and my nearest teacher, Venerable Ajahn Brahm. So thank you. I'm always happy to listen to your Dhamma talk. Very, very powerful and meaningful. Thank you. And I also would like to acknowledge my colleague, Member of Parliament for Canberra, Alicia Payne. She is one of my mentors. I'm very new as a Member of Parliament, less than 1 year old. So I learned a lot from my senior members. Thank you, Alicia. And I also would like to acknowledge Damian, the United Nations Information Center Director, Mrs. Nishi Puri, the President of Multicultural Association of Canberra, and Mr. Gawaine Powell Davies, President of the Federation of Australian Buddhist Council. And I also would like to acknowledge the Venerable Mahasangha here. I'm very, very happy to attend to Buddhist event. And I would like to say, I feel like home again. Yeah. Since after I got elected, I have very less time to do my meditation, very less time to go to listen to Dhamma talks or attend to Buddhist event. Because as a Member of Parliament, suddenly I got a shock. My life is full of things to do. And it's more work than my police career. As a police, I face a lot of confrontation, a lot of stressful job. But as a Member of Parliament, I face more. But I'm very delighted because my karma lead me to this path. And as a first Buddhist in federal government in the whole of Australia, I'm very, very happy to represent the Buddhist society. And I hope I can help more Buddhist community. But of course, I attend to the Muslim community, the Hindu community, the Sikh community, because I'm a Member of Parliament for everyone. But deep inside me, I'm still a Buddhist. So I learned Buddhism when I was 29 years old. I learned it from the Thai monk in Thailand. And then later on I went to Burma and continued with my meditation. And then since after that, every year I would spend weeks or months to do my personal retreat when I was in Malaysia. Later on, in 2002, we migrated to Australia. Unfortunately, in 2006, my daughter was very sick. She was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma cancer. And the doctors, oncologists said she only got 25 days to live. And my wife and I, we were the only friends because I migrated to Australia with no friends. And we were running around looking after our daughter when she got her chemo. And chemotherapy is very, very harsh. 2 weeks after the chemo, she got no more eyebrows, no more hair, and ulcer on her mouth and throat, and she can't eat, she can't drink. So we got to think about a way how to look after her. So chemo after chemo, my wife and I got exhausted, really tired. And we forgot about meditation until one day we look at each other and we start realizing that, we let go our practice for some time already. That's why we are so burned. And then she look at me, I look at her, and then we do our walking meditation. After 1 hour of walking meditation, we refresh again. And then since then, we got more energy, and our daughter until now is still alive. So by the power of Dharma, I conquer a lot of my internal hindrance. Nothing can obstruct us if your internal is strong enough. And the Buddha taught us well, without meditation, there is no teaching that you can really practice. Only through meditation you see your true self. I'm not here to preach, but I want to share the knowledge and the skill which I got from the Buddha's teaching, and I got a lot of gratitude to all Buddhist monks. Without the Buddhist monk, without the Sangha, we don't have this teaching. They are the one who carry on the duty, because after Buddha Parinibbana, the teaching needs to be passed on. They are the one who help us to pass on the beautiful teaching of the Buddha. And thank you to Mahasangha. Thank you very much. Without you all, we would no opportunity to learn the Dharma. So the Buddha is so beautiful, the Dharma is so beautiful, and the Sangha is so beautiful. And as a member of Parliament, I hope I can protect, I can serve, and I can look after the welfare of the Buddhist community. When some of the people came to my office asking to sort out their visa problem, this is my problem. Come and see me. And when people come to my office to look for solution to solve their Medicare problem, this is my problem too. Come and look at us, because we represent the federal government. Or people can't have aged care, child care, whatever care that is under the system is a federal issue. Come and look for us. And if you are in WA, you know where is my office. You can see my smiling face at the top of the building. And I'm happy to help. And I would like to say the last word about multiculturalism. Everywhere we go in Australia, we are the country that is very, very successful in multiculturalism. And why Australia is so strong? Because through multiculturalism, we gain our powerful and strength. That's why Australia's strength is in multiculturalism. And as a federal member of Parliament, we are here to encourage more colorful multiculturalism, more colorful multi-faith. Only through this beautiful color, we can be better and we can have great strength in our nation. In my area of Tangi, I got 162 nationality. 162 nationality, there's a lot of powerful message there. Everyone speak different language, practice different faith, practice different culture, but it's a big, beautiful harmony melting pot. And that is the strength of Australia. And I hope with this strength, Australia can perform well in the world global stage. And last but not least, I want to wish everyone have a happy Vesak. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to ask Alicia Payne to come up, member for Canberra, to say a few words. Canberra, many years ago now, opened its arms to Buddhism. And just a simple fact, on this street we have a Vietnamese monastery here. Next door is McKillop House for Christianity, and then a Thai Buddhist temple further on. So Canberra has been very welcoming to Buddhism, so we'd like you to say some remarks, Alicia. Thank you.
Maybe you surprised that the Thai temple is a Ukrainian Catholic church also.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here this morning, and I want to begin by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. And I particularly want to acknowledge the Venerable Thich Quang and Venerable Thubten Chokyi and Venerable Ajahn Brahm. And thank you so much for inviting me and others today to celebrate this really special day for Buddhists around the world, and all the other venerables in the room as well, which want to acknowledge you and our other invited guests. It's particularly special to have my friend and Labor colleague Sam Lim here today, all the way from Western Australia, and it's been absolutely wonderful to have him in the Parliament, and particularly his first speech. If you haven't had a chance to read that, I absolutely recommend that you do. And he's very kind to say that he can learn from me, but I think I have a lot to learn from him. So it's great to be here with you today, Sam. Vesak obviously holds deep meaning for all followers of the Buddha and serves as a reminder of his wisdom and compassion, his teachings and the impact they have on countless lives. And as others have said this morning, that the Buddha's teachings and universal values of peace, compassion and understanding are universal truths that continue to resonate in the often divisive and conflicted world in which we live. A world which continues to grapple with issues such as growing inequality and environmental decline. And with the recent global events such as the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and the continuing striving for peace, and in many countries where they don't enjoy the peace that we do here in Australia. The fundamental principles of Buddhism to cultivate mindfulness, embrace empathy and to strive for well-being continue to be so important. If we embrace these principles as an individual and as a community, it can inspire us to build a more compassionate and sustainable future for all. And there's something that we can all take from that. The recent years of the pandemic and the lockdowns have also shown the vital importance of bringing people together and fostering connections in our community. And I want to acknowledge particularly Venerable Thich Quang and the work that happens here, and what a central place this place is in our Canberra community for Buddhists, for the Canberra Buddhist community. And I want to thank you all for the contribution that you make to making Canberra and Australia a more vibrant and tolerant place. And by embracing diversity and cultivating harmony, we can create a society that respects the dignity and rights of every person. And lastly, just want to extend my warmest wishes to all of you and to the Canberra Buddhist community on this Vesak Day. May your celebrations be filled with joy, reflection and spiritual growth. And may the Buddha's teachings guide us towards compassion, peace and harmony. Thank you.
So next I'm going to call on Senator David Pocock. David, I'm Welsh, so I've watched you play rugby quite a few times, and one of the heroes in Welsh is a Welsh referee called Nigel Owens. And Nigel Owens said that you gave him the biggest moment in his rugby life when Australia finished up on the wrong side of a World Cup final. But he said you went over to him and shook his hand and said, "You played a great game, ref." And he said that was the mark of a real gentleman and somebody who had great honour for other people. So it's an honour to meet you, and I'd like you to share some messages today.
Well, thank you all so much for this opportunity. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on Ngunnawal country. Ngunnawal people have had connection to this part of Australia for tens of thousands of years. It's an incredible example to all of us of a connection to a place, an understanding and a love of a place, and would like to acknowledge their elders, past and present. Would like to acknowledge all the venerables and all of you here, my parliamentary colleagues, Alicia, Payne, Sam Lim. Buddhism is not a tradition that I was brought up in, but it is one that I have a deep respect for and have benefited so much from. I really want to start by thanking you for the contribution that you make in our community here in Canberra and around the country. Quite early on in my rugby career, I was introduced to meditation, and it was a practice that I was encouraged to explore and found so valuable in sport, being able to focus, to live in the moment, to let go of mistakes, move on to the next thing. But the real benefit is, what I've found, is in life. Being able to sit with yourself, to sit in gratitude for life. It is such an incredible gift. And I think in the times we're living in, with the uncertainty, with so many of the the anchors that humans have had for a long time when it comes to religion and a connection to something bigger than ourselves, when so many of those are being eroded and we're living in an increasingly secular society where you could argue that the new sort of religions at large are materialism, hedonism, narcissism, and being able to ground yourself in the here and now, being able to recognize each other and the divinity in each other, I think is such an important thing that we really need to start to grapple with more as a society. So I thank you for the work that you're doing. I agree. The world of agree with Sam. The world of Parliament is not conducive to taking some time out, but it is so crucial to be able to make decisions that affect all of us. It's certainly something that I try and prioritise, starting the day with some gratitude, some quiet time, and it's certainly something that I've encouraged younger, both rugby players and younger people who are asking for advice. Take time for yourself. It may seem selfish, but it is a gift to the people around you. And I think what Buddhism has done and known for so long, science is now starting to say, well, actually, there's something to this. We've discovered all this stuff. It's like, well, hang on. No, this has been happening for a very, very long time. So thank you for your contribution. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak and be part of this. And I really do give you my warmest wishes for Vesak. I hope it is a great time of community, of reflection, of regeneration, and all the best when you head back to your various homes across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The United Nations has always been a strong supporter for Vesak for many years and has often designated UN Vesak Day. So we're highly delighted that Damian could come and join us and speak on behalf of the United Nations. Damian, please.
Thank you very much, and I do also would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are gathering today and pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. Venerables, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my real pleasure to be here today on behalf of the United Nations. You know, the United Nations is, of course, a multinational, multi-governmental organization, and it's lay by nature. However, it does acknowledge and respect, of course, the values of religions as builders of peace and as constructor of societies. Actually, I've been in Australia just 1 year, and I believe 5 days after I landed in Canberra, I was invited to the Eid celebration at the end of Ramadan. I actually met David, I believe, there. A few months later, we have a beautiful day that you're all invited next year, September 21st, at the Peace Bell by the lake. We have International Day of Peace. And Member of Parliament was also there that day. So I mean, in the United Nations, for us, civil society, religions at large are extremely important partners because they help us spread the words that were contained in the Charter of the UN established in 1945. Let me tell you that I know very little about Buddhism, much less than I should. But I remember when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, my mother went on a trip to Asia. She was in, I believe, in Vietnam and in Thailand. And she brought a beautiful Buddha that is still at home, a wooden one. And I remember telling my mom, oh, look, their God smiles. That, I remember, struck me a lot. You know, it was this figure of smile and peace that I don't want to criticize. I come from a very Catholic country that the images are less peaceful. Don't quote me on that, please. But I mean, so that was absolutely stunning. And this, if you ever come to my house in Yarralamla, you will see the statues there. Anyway, but it's not for me to speak today. As you know, the General Assembly in 1999 established the Vesak Day as a UN observance. And every year, our Secretary General prepares a message that I'm very proud. I am the representative of the Secretary General in Australia and New Zealand, and it's my honor to read for you this year's message. I send my warmest wishes to the millions around the world celebrating the day of Vesak, which marks the birth, enlightenment, and passing of the Buddha. The ideals celebrated on this sacred day have a deep resonance with the goals of our United Nations: understanding among peoples, the pursuit of harmony, the promotion of peace. At this time of strife, the Buddha's teachings of tolerance, compassion, and service to humanity are a source of solace and strength. As we navigate the path to a better future, let us seize the spirit of Vesak. Let us reach out to bridge differences, rise above narrow self-interest, and work together in solidarity for a more peaceful world for all. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, May 5th, 2023. Thank you very much.
One of the things I enjoy about Buddhism, if you just look around the room, you can see how multicultural we are. And we stand for no discrimination against anyone, whether it's based on race, religion, preferences, identity. So for us, multiculturalism is really, really important. So I'd like to call on Mrs. Nishi Puri as the President of the Multicultural Association of Canberra to remind us of the importance of multiculturalism in Buddhism. Thank you.
Namaste, good morning everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people on whose land we meet today and would like to pay my respects to elders present, past and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge all the dignitaries on my left who have made it early and bright this morning, to all the members of ASA Sangha for giving me this, Sangha Association of Australia for giving me this beautiful opportunity to say a few words. I'm totally honored and humbled. And I would also like to pay my respects at the humble respects at the feet of Lord Buddha. So why are we celebrating Vesak today? I feel really proud to be coming from the land of Buddha. I am an Indian and I have grown up with the values of Lord Buddha. Although I'm not a Buddhist, I am a Hindu, but going to school in India, we had a topic on moral science. So moral science had lots and lots of stories about Gautam Buddha, Siddhartha, as we would call him. And we learned a lot about Lord Buddha when we were growing up with those values of compassion, those values of ahimsa, non-injury. And the one particular value that really stands out for me today in this day and age of wars, of so much of political unrest in the community, in the world, political unrest, social unrest, war, greed. The main important principle of Gautam Buddha was ahimsa, or non-injury in words, action, and deeds. So I'm going to read out a few words of the teachings that I've learned as I've grown up on Lord Buddha as I go by. In the present times when the world peace is breached by several conflicts and wars taking place all over the world, and the very existence of human being is threatened, the importance of celebrating Vesak is very significant. Significant because on this day, Lord Buddha was born, he gained enlightenment, and he died on the same day. Buddha's teachings are eternal and can be applied in the present times as well. An important teaching of Buddha was ahimsa. Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word for meaning non-injury. It is important spiritual doctrine shared by Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. It literally means non-injury by your actions, words, thoughts, and deeds. And I think in today's day and age, if we all practiced this one doctrine of non-injury, this world would be a lovely place to live in. I would also like to now quote a small example from the Indian history, which most of the Buddhists might be aware of. There used to be an emperor by the name of King Ashoka from the Maurya dynasty. I can see some nods happening there. So King Ashoka waged many wars and was a very powerful and a rich king. So when he waged these wars, he saw lots of killings and suffering in the world. And then he thought and reflected, why am I doing this? What is this leading me up to? He changed into a very compassionate and a great king. And guess who brought this change around in King Ashoka? It was the teachings of Lord Buddha. So he was born 200 years after Lord Buddha, but the impact of Buddhism was so profound on his life. When he read about Buddha, he became a totally changed person and followed the path of ahimsa, which was non-injury. He stopped waging wars and one of the best kings that the Maurya dynasty could ever produce. So such was the profound effect of Lord Buddha on people's teachings of Lord Buddha on the minds of people. Growing up in my school, I learned about the 4 principles of Lord Buddha, which I would like to now read out to everyone who is a non-Buddhist here. Buddhism talks about the 4 noble truths or internal principles. Understanding these will lead to a happy and peaceful life without sufferings. It is of great importance to all of us at all times because a life devoid of happiness is not good for anyone. One may have all the best cars, big houses and properties, but no peace of mind or happiness. If there is no peace of mind or happiness, then what is the point of having all these? The first noble truth that Buddha talked about was that our very existence is tied to sufferings. The second noble truth is that we will have pain, misery and sickness, and we will suffer because of our greed, desire, and to seek pleasure, ignorance, and hatred. The third noble truth is that it is possible to end the sufferings by ending all our craving, basically having a ceiling on our desires. And the fourth noble truth is the way to follow the eightfold paths to end the sufferings, which is right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So these are the principles that I grew up with, even though I was a non-Buddhist. So, and if I feel that if we practice these principles little by little in our lives, we can definitely change our society for the better. I have recently been appointed as the Multicultural Ambassador of ACT. And on behalf of the multicultural community, I just wanted to add that we live in this beautiful country, Australia, and we have been given this right to practice our religion, our faith. We have this opportunity to celebrate our celebrations with the wider community, with our dignitaries who come here and they welcome us. So let us, today I would like to give a message that let us all strive to adopt at least one teaching of Lord Buddha, at least one, whether it is ahimsa, whether it is being kind, compassionate, truthful, honesty. Even if you take one teaching of Lord Buddha, reflect on it, and move on, we will definitely make a significant change in this world. So I would like to conclude on by a quote from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Let us seize this moment of spiritual renewal and honor Buddha's wisdom by coming together as one in solidarity and shaping a better, more peaceful world for all the people. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Nishi. One last message from Gawaine, Powell, Davies. There are 2 peak bodies in Buddhism. One is the Australian Sangha Association, which is the monastics. Gawaine leads the councils across Australia, so working with the Buddhist communities in the States. So, Gawaine, if you'd like to give some concluding remarks, please.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much. When I think of honouring the Aboriginal people who lived here for maybe 10, maybe 40,000 years, I like to imagine that we're a group of people who lived here 400 years ago, 500 years ago, doing exactly what we're doing now. Not sitting on chairs, probably not with saffron tablecloths, but sitting around with people of their own community, sharing their customs, rehearsing their culture, teaching their children, although we don't have so many children here today, and celebrating the life that they lead. And in this year of the referendum, as we think about healing the wounds between the Aboriginal communities and the other parts of Australian society, I think a very strong place to start is what we have in common. And what we do is exactly what they did. It's just we do it in different clothes and we have different words. And we have a slightly different take on the fundamental values that are important in life. But when we listen to them and they listen to us, we have so much to learn from each other. So rather than just an acknowledgement, I would like to celebrate all of the things that they did, so similar to what we do and yet so importantly different over all of those centuries and millennia. I'd also like to acknowledge the Sangha and thank Venerable for being such a wonderful host to this gathering and creating such a sense of peace and harmony, and that there isn't actually that much difference between the people on this side of the room and the people on that side of the room, and the people who are Buddhists and the people who aren't Buddhists. We are all here for very, very similar purposes. I came to Buddhism, I'm one of the many people who bought a book in an airport lounge, but I was 13. And I read it and I thought, this is a world that seems so strange, I can't understand it, but there's something there which is appealing. And for the next 50 years, it was sitting there ticking over in the back of my life. And then not 50 years, 40 years. And then about 20 years ago, I became a practicing Buddhist. I learned to meditate, I studied the Dharma, but in a world very different from this one. The Buddhist world that I came into was a world of more secular Buddhism. We never met a monk or a nun. We studied the suttas, and there was a sense, I think, that the Sangha was perhaps a part of an old tradition which was being passed by. And one of the things that I've learnt and has been very important to me in the 4 years that I've been chair of the Buddhist Council of New South Wales is just how deep the tradition and the values and the teaching and the example of the Sangha is as part of the Buddhist community, and also how similar the concerns of people who see themselves as more secular Buddhists are to those things that are practiced, you might say professionally, by people who have taken the vows and wear the robes. And as I was reflecting on what Vesak means, and that it's a celebration of the Buddha, it's a celebration of the Dharma and the Sangha, it is the Sangha that has kept the continuity. It is that has maintained the thread. And it is therefore part of what we celebrate on this Vesak Day, which is the common heritage that we have all derived from the life of the Buddha. But because I'm a more secular, perhaps, Buddhist, I would like to give a slightly different take on how we might think of the Buddha. We can think of the Buddha as the great teacher who understood the Dharma and brought it to the rest of us. He was also a man who felt out of sorts with the world he grew into. He didn't fit. He left and he wandered for a long time and tried all kinds of things that didn't work. That's not so very different from what happens to the children of many of the people in this room. They grow up into a family, they grow up into a life. Where do I fit? What do I do? They have to find their own way. And I think one of the things that we can celebrate with the life of the Buddha is people's need to find their own way, and the path that they take, and the need for compassion and support and understanding as they do it. What the Buddha did must have seemed absolutely disgraceful and disrespectful to his parents and to the community that he came for. He rejected them, he left them. That's what many people do in our society too. But through that, he found something of inestimable value. And when we think about what he found, which was the Dharma, I think of the Dharma as the science of how things work. What the Buddha saw was that the way things work in people's hearts and in the affairs of men and women, it's not what we think at all. It's not that bigger is better than smaller, that louder is better than quieter. It's that very challenging verse from the Dhammapada. Hate is never overcome by hate. Hate is only overcome by love. This is a universal law. That is one of the most challenging things that you can ever take on board and look at the world through. So he saw how the world works. And I think what we should be doing is celebrating people who are also trying to understand how the world works and live in accordance with that. And we all have different ideas about how it works. But if we're honest and if we're sincere and if we're open to learning from the wisdom of others and from the mistakes that we make, then we will slowly correct our course and move perhaps in a less destructive and less difficult direction. And of course, the last thing, or the first thing, is the Sangha. And perhaps we can think of that as the community of people who care. And if we seek out other people who care and learn about what they care about and what they have learned from caring about that, then I think we will have learned what we need from the life and the wisdom and the heritage of the Buddha. Thank you all very much.
So that concludes our ceremony. Thank you ever so much for coming, especially the distinguished guests. It's been a joy to have you with us. The spirit of today, the kindness, the generosity that we all want to extend to each other, may be that a blessing that carries forward throughout the whole year. And thanks for being with us.
Assure that our volunteers, whoever would like to leave the Binabata location to airport, tell the driver, they will hold the card for you. Thank you. Otherwise, come back here for lunch. Thank you. Are you leaving?
Yes, I've got to get my flight.
You already got the driver waiting for you yet?
No, not yet. Oh. I will get one. But anyway, I've got to give a talk tonight.
Thank you.
I've got to go back to work.
Sure.
Thank you for your hospitality.
Thank you for coming. Sorry.